The sun had not yet cleared the mountains when Erica Collins turned the key in the lock of Riverbend Cafe. She was always the first to arrive, always had been for the past 15 years. The familiar click of the lock, the creak of the old wooden door, the smell of yesterday's coffee that still lingered in the air. These were the small comforts that marked the beginning of each day in Redfield. Erica flipped on the lights and the cafe came to life around her. It was a modest place, nothing fancy, but it had character. Exposed brick walls held local artwork, mismatched chairs surrounded small wooden tables, and the long counter with its gleaming espresso machine was the heart of the operation. She had spent countless hours behind that counter, learning the quirks of the machine, perfecting her pour, memorizing how each regular customer took their coffee. At 66, Erica moved with the efficiency of someone who had done this routine so many times it had become muscle memory. She ground the first beans of the day, started the first pot of regular coffee, checked that the pastries would be delivered on time, and wiped down the already clean counter. By the time she unlocked the door at 6 o'clock, everything was ready. Tom Morrison was her first customer, as he had been every weekday for as long as she could remember. He owned the hardware store down the street and liked his coffee black and strong with 2 sugars. He always sat at the corner table and read the Redfield Gazette while he drank his coffee. "Morning, Erica," he said as he walked in, the little bell above the door announcing his arrival. "Morning, Tom. The usual?" "You know me too well," she smiled as she poured his coffee. She did know him well. She knew that he worried about his daughter who was away at college, that his left knee bothered him when it rained, that he had been married to the same woman for 40 years, and that he secretly loved the blueberry muffins but would never admit it because he was supposed to be watching his sugar. The morning rush began around 7. Teachers from Redfield High School grabbed coffee on their way to work. Nurses from the medical center stopped by after their night shifts. Contractors picked up large coffees before heading to job sites in the surrounding area. Erica knew them all. She knew Sarah Chen taught chemistry and had twin boys in middle school. She knew Marcus Jefferson was building a new addition on the Peterson house. She knew that Linda Harper always ordered a vanilla latte, but would switch to decaf after noon because regular coffee kept her up at night. This was her life now, and she loved it. The simplicity of it, the predictability, the gentle rhythm of small-town life where everyone knew each other, where the biggest news was usually about whose garden had the best tomatoes or which high school sports team had won their latest game. By mid-morning, the rush had slowed. Erica had a moment to prepare the lunch specials. Today, it was chicken salad sandwiches and tomato soup. Her coworker, Jenny Martinez, arrived at 10 to help with the lunch crowd. Jenny was 23, studying part-time at the community college in the next town, and dreaming of opening her own restaurant someday. Erica enjoyed teaching her, sharing what she knew about coffee and customer service, though she never mentioned anything about her life before Redfield. "Beautiful morning," Jenny said as she tied on her apron. "Did you see the sunrise? It was all pink and orange over the mountains." "I did," Erica replied. "Stopped me in my tracks on my walk here." "You walk every day? That's like 3 miles from your house." "Good exercise. Gives me time to think." What Erica did not say was that the walk also gave her time to observe. Old habits died hard, and even after 15 years, she noticed things. Who was out early? Which cars were parked where? Any changes in the normal pattern of the town. It was probably unnecessary in a place like Redfield, where crime was almost non-existent, but she could not help herself. The lunch crowd came and went. Sandwiches were made and served. Soup was ladled into bowls. Coffee cups were refilled. Erica chatted with customers, asked about their families, listened to their small problems and their little joys. This was the part of the job she treasured most, the human connection, the way she could make someone's day a little better just by remembering their name and asking about their sick cat or their grandson's baseball game. Around 2 o'clock, things quieted down again. This was when the high school students would sometimes come in. Not many, because most of them could not afford coffee shop prices on their allowances, but a few. Erica always liked seeing them. They reminded her of why she had worked so hard in her old life, why she had taken the risks she had taken. Today, though, something felt different. A group of 4 students came in, and Erica recognized them. Tyler Banks, Casey Morrison, Tom's son, Emma Rodriguez, and Hannah Chen, Sarah's daughter. But they looked different somehow. Tyler's eyes were red and glassy. Casey seemed nervous, looking around as if he expected someone to jump out at him. The girls were quieter than usual. "Hey, Miss Collins," Hannah said, her voice lacking its usual brightness. "Can we get 4 hot chocolates?" "Of course, sweetie. Everything okay?" "Yeah, fine. Just tired. Tests, you know." Erica made their drinks, but watched them carefully as they sat at a table in the corner. They spoke in hushed tones, and Tyler kept checking his phone. When Casey pulled out some money to pay, Erica noticed his hands were shaking slightly. She told herself it was nothing. They were teenagers. They had stress. School could be hard. But something in her gut, that old instinct that had never really gone away, told her to pay attention. The rest of the afternoon passed normally. The after-work crowd came through, teachers stopping by for a pick-me-up before heading home to grade papers. Office workers from the few small businesses in town. Retirees meeting friends for conversation and coffee. At 5 o'clock, Erica began closing procedures. Jenny had left at 3, so Erica cleaned up alone, which was how she preferred it. She wiped down tables, washed dishes, restocked supplies for the next day, and counted the register. Everything had to be just right. Organization and attention to detail had always been important to her. By 5:30, she was locking the door again and beginning her walk home. The evening air was cool, and the mountains cast long shadows across Main Street. Redfield was beautiful in the evening light. It was a town of about 5,000 people, nestled in a valley with mountains on 3 sides and a river running through the middle. It had been settled in the 1800s as a mining town, and some of the original buildings still stood on Main Street, though now they housed coffee shops and bookstores instead of saloons and general stores. Erica's house was on Maple Street, a quiet residential area with old trees and well-kept lawns. It was a small 2-bedroom cottage that she had bought when she first moved to Redfield. She had paid cash, one of the advantages of having worked for 25 years and having no one to spend money on. The house was simple but comfortable, and she had made it her own over the years. A garden in the back where she grew tomatoes and herbs. A front porch where she could sit in the evening and watch the neighborhood. A bedroom upstairs that she had converted into a reading room, filled with books and a comfortable chair by the window. She made herself a simple dinner, grilled chicken and salad from her garden, and ate on the back porch. The evening was quiet except for birdsong and the distant sound of children playing. She cleaned up her dishes, then settled into her reading chair with a mystery novel. She had always liked mysteries, even though they often got things wrong about police work. Or maybe because they got things wrong. The real thing had been far messier and more complicated than any novel could capture. As darkness fell, Erica prepared for bed. She followed the same routine every night. check that all doors and windows were locked, set the alarm system, one concession to her old life that she could not give up, brush her teeth, change into pajamas, set out clothes for tomorrow. Order and routine helped her feel secure. But as she lay in bed, her mind kept returning to those 4 teenagers in the cafe. The look in Tyler's eyes, Casey's shaking hands, the nervous way they had all acted. It was probably nothing. Teenagers were dramatic. They probably just had a big test coming up or some social drama. Still, she made a mental note to pay attention tomorrow, just in case. Old habits, as they say, die hard. Before Redfield, before Riverbend Cafe, before Erica Collins became the beloved barista of a small mountain town, there was Detective Erica Collins of the Chicago Police Department, Narcotics Division. And before that, there was simply Erica, a girl from a working-class neighborhood on the South Side who wanted to make a difference. Erica had grown up watching her neighborhood struggle with drugs. She was too young to understand it fully at first, but she saw the effects. The vacant-eyed adults on street corners, the houses that fell into disrepair, the families that fell apart. Her own uncle had lost his battle with addiction when she was 12, and she had watched her mother cry for weeks afterward. "Someone should do something," her mother had said at the funeral, anger mixing with grief. Erica had decided that someone would be her. After high school, she had enrolled in the criminal justice program at the University of Illinois. She studied hard, graduated with honors, and immediately applied to the Chicago Police Academy. Her mother had been terrified. Police work was dangerous, and she had already lost a brother. But Erica was determined. The academy was tough, but Erica was tougher. She excelled in academics, performed well in physical training, and showed a natural aptitude for investigation. Her instructors noted that she had an analytical mind and excellent observation skills. She could walk into a room and notice details that others missed. She could listen to someone's story and detect the inconsistencies that indicated lying. After graduating from the academy, Erica spent 3 years in patrol, learning the streets and building experience. She was a good officer, fair but firm, compassionate but professional. She developed a reputation for being able to talk people down from bad situations, for being able to connect with witnesses who were reluctant to talk, for being thorough in her reports and investigations. When an opening came up in the narcotics division, Erica applied immediately. This was where she wanted to be, where she felt she could make the most difference. The interview was intense. They wanted to make sure she could handle the stress, the danger, the sometimes morally ambiguous situations that came with drug enforcement. But she convinced them that she was ready. Detective Erica Collins started in narcotics at age 28. For the next 25 years, it would be her life. The work was everything she had hoped for, and everything she had feared. It was challenging and meaningful, but it was also dark and dangerous. She worked cases involving street-level dealers and major distribution networks. She went undercover in clubs and at buy meets. She built relationships with informants. She executed search warrants. She testified in court. The drugs changed over the years. Cocaine and heroin gave way to methamphetamine and prescription pills, which eventually led to the opioid crisis that devastated communities across America. Erica worked them all. She learned the chemistry, the supply chains, the psychology of addiction, the violence that inevitably accompanied the trade. She was good at her job, very good. By her mid-30s, she had made detective, and by her early 40s, she was leading investigations. She had a gift for seeing the big picture, for understanding how the pieces fit together. While other detectives focused on making quick arrests, Erica took the time to build comprehensive cases. She wanted to take down entire networks, not just individual dealers. Her biggest case had started when she was 48. A new synthetic drug had appeared on Chicago's streets, something called Blue Sky, because of its distinctive color. It was cheap, highly addictive, and devastating. Overdoses spiked. Emergency rooms were overwhelmed. Young people were dying. Erica's team worked for 3 years to trace Blue Sky back to its source. They started with street dealers, worked their way up to distributors, identified the smuggling routes, and finally located the manufacturing operation. It was run by a criminal organization called the Vega Cartel, based in Mexico, but with tentacles throughout the United States. The investigation was massive, involving multiple agencies and jurisdictions. Erica became the lead investigator, coordinating between the Chicago police, the DEA, the FBI, and Mexican law enforcement. It consumed her life. She worked 16-hour days. She sacrificed her personal life. Not that she had much of one to begin with. She had never married, never had children. The job had always come first. The Vega Cartel was sophisticated and brutal. They used encrypted communications, changed locations frequently, and had corrupted officials in multiple agencies. They also did not hesitate to use violence. Anyone who threatened their operation was eliminated. Erica knew she was walking a dangerous line, but she pressed forward. Too many people had died. Too many families had been destroyed. The key to breaking the case was going undercover. They needed someone inside the organization, someone who could gather evidence that would stand up in court. Erica volunteered. Her supervisors were hesitant. She was 51 at the time, older than the typical undercover operative. But she argued that her age might actually be an advantage. The cartel would be less likely to suspect a middle-aged woman. After months of preparation and careful backstopping, Erica went undercover as Elena Martinez, a financial consultant with a criminal past who was looking to help criminal organizations clean their money. The cover story was solid. They had built a complete history for Elena, complete with fake references and a network of contacts who would vouch for her. Getting into the organization took time. She started with low-level contacts, proved her value, and gradually worked her way up. It took nearly a year, but eventually, she was meeting with mid-level operatives. She wore hidden recording devices to every meeting. She documented financial transactions. She identified key players and their roles in the organization. The work was terrifying. Every day, she worried that someone would see through her cover. Every meeting, she feared that this would be the day they discovered she was a cop. She had to think like a criminal, talk like a criminal, and earn the trust of people who would kill her without hesitation if they knew the truth. But she was good at it. Her psychological training helped her maintain her cover identity. Her attention to detail ensured she never made a slip. Her calm demeanor convinced them she could be trusted with sensitive information. After 18 months undercover, Erica had gathered enough evidence to take down the entire Chicago branch of the Vega Cartel. She had recordings, financial documents, and testimony that would put dozens of people in prison for decades. She had also identified the cartel's leadership and their operations in other cities. The takedown was planned for a Thursday morning in April. Multiple teams would execute simultaneous raids across Chicago and 3 other cities. It would be one of the biggest drug busts in Illinois history. Everything went according to plan. Almost. The raids were successful. Arrests were made. Evidence was seized. The blue sky supply chain was destroyed. Erica's work had saved countless lives and dealt a devastating blow to the Vega cartel. But then something went wrong. A leak. Someone in law enforcement, they never found out who, had given information to the cartel. Not enough to warn them about the raids, but enough to compromise Erica's cover. Her real identity, her photos, her address, all of it was sent to cartel leadership. Within days, her face was circulating among cartel members. There was a price on her head. Her apartment was broken into. Her car was vandalized with threats spray-painted on it. And worst of all, her partner, Detective Michael Chen, who had been her closest friend for 15 years, was attacked in a parking garage by cartel associates seeking revenge. Michael survived, but he was badly injured. He spent weeks in the hospital and would never fully recover. Erica visited him every day, consumed by guilt. This was her case. He had been hurt because of her investigation. The department placed her in protective custody immediately. Federal marshals evaluated the threat and determined it was serious. The Vega cartel had a long memory and deep resources. Even with many of their Chicago members arrested, they had people everywhere. Erica would need to be relocated and given a new identity if she wanted to survive. The next few months were a nightmare. Therapy sessions to deal with the trauma, debriefings about the case, legal proceedings as the arrested cartel members went to trial. And through it all, the knowledge that her life as Detective Erica Collins was over. She had to give up everything: her career, her friends, her identity. Even her name would have to change. The marshals offered to place her in the Witness Protection Program, but Erica decided on a different path. She would retire from the police force, take her pension, and start over somewhere quiet, where no one would think to look for her. She chose Redfield almost at random. It was small, isolated, far from Chicago, and in a completely different world. She legally changed her name, keeping Erica because she could not imagine answering to anything else, but changing Sanchez to Collins, her grandmother's maiden name. She created a simple background story. She had been a teacher in suburban Chicago, divorced, no children, retiring early for health reasons. When she arrived in Redfield 15 years ago, she was 51 years old, emotionally exhausted, and broken in ways that were not visible. The nightmares came every night. Dreams of being discovered, of gunfire, of Michael's injuries. She jumped at loud noises. She constantly scanned crowds for threats that were not there. But slowly, gradually, over months and years, Redfield healed her. The quiet pace of life, the absence of violence, the simple pleasure of making coffee and talking to friendly people who had no idea about her past. She learned to breathe again. The nightmares became less frequent. The hypervigilance slowly faded, though it never completely disappeared. She built a new life, a good life. She made friends, though she never let anyone get too close. She found peace in routine and simplicity. She convinced herself that Detective Erica Collins was dead, and that Barista Erica Collins was all that remained. For 15 years, that had been enough. But now, lying in bed in her quiet house in Redfield, thinking about those 4 nervous teenagers in her cafe, Erica felt something stirring. An old instinct. A familiar itch. The detective she had buried was waking up. And as much as she had tried to leave that life behind, she could not deny what her gut was telling her. Something was wrong in Redfield. The next morning, Erica arrived at Riverbend Cafe even earlier than usual. She had not slept well, her mind circling around those teenagers and the uneasy feeling they had left her with. She told herself she was overreacting, seeing problems where none existed. But she also knew her instincts had been honed by 25 years of police work, and they were rarely wrong. Tom Morrison arrived at his usual time, and Erica poured his usual coffee. But this morning, she had questions. "Tom, how's Casey doing? I saw him yesterday afternoon with some friends." Tom looked up from his newspaper, surprised by the question. "Casey? He's fine, I guess. Why?" "No reason. Just seemed a bit tired. You know teenagers." "Tell me about it. He's been staying up late studying. Says he has a big chemistry test coming up." Erica nodded and let it go. But she made a mental note. Casey had said the same thing. Tests. Maybe that was all it was. Or maybe it was the excuse teenagers use these days when they did not want their parents asking questions. Throughout the morning, Erica paid more attention to her customers than usual. She listened to conversations, watched body language, tried to pick up any hints that something unusual was happening in town. For the most part, everything seemed normal. People talked about the weather, local politics, their gardens, their jobs. But around mid-morning, she overheard something interesting. Two women were sitting at a table near the window. Janet Pierce, who worked at the medical center, and Patricia Reynolds, a nurse practitioner. They were speaking in low voices, but Erica had always had excellent hearing. "3 more this week," Janet was saying. "All teenagers, same symptoms." "What's the hospital saying?" "They're calling it food poisoning, but I don't buy it. Food poisoning doesn't cause the kind of agitation and paranoia I'm seeing." "You think it's drugs?" "I don't know what else it could be. But if it is, it's something new. Nothing I've seen before." Erica felt her pulse quicken. She forced herself to stay calm, to keep making coffee and serving customers as if she had heard nothing. But her mind was racing. Teenagers with unusual symptoms, medical professionals who suspected drugs. This was not just her imagination. When Jenny arrived at 10, Erica asked her to cover the counter for a minute. She went into the back office, a small room with a desk, a filing cabinet, and a computer, and pulled out her phone. She had kept it all these years, a burner phone, never used, with only one number programmed into it. The number of Detective Michael Chen, her old partner. She stared at the phone for a long moment. Calling him would be breaking the rule she had set for herself 15 years ago. No contact with her old life. But this was important. If drugs were appearing in Redfield, if teenagers were being hurt, she needed to know what she was dealing with. Her finger hovered over the call button. Then she put the phone away. Not yet. She needed more information first. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe it really was just food poisoning or stress or any of a dozen other innocent explanations. But she would keep watching and listening. Over the next few days, Erica paid careful attention to everything happening in town. She noticed that the high school students who came into the cafe seemed more anxious than usual. Some had the same glassy-eyed look she had seen in Tyler. Others seemed jumpy and paranoid. And there were whispers, hushed conversations that stopped when adults came near. She also noticed something else: new faces in town. Redfield was small enough that strangers were noticeable, and there had been several lately. Men in their 20s and 30s, well-dressed but somehow out of place in a mountain town. They claimed to be tourists or businessmen passing through, but something about them did not fit. They stayed too long. They asked too many questions. They watched people too carefully. One afternoon, Erica saw one of these men talking to Tyler Banks outside the cafe. The conversation lasted only a minute or two, but Erica saw Tyler hand the man some cash. The man gave Tyler something in return. She could not see what, but it was small enough to fit in Tyler's pocket. That sealed it. This was not food poisoning or stress. Drugs were in Redfield, and someone was selling them to teenagers. That night, after closing the cafe, Erica did something she had not done in 15 years. She conducted surveillance. She drove to Main Street, parked in a spot where she could watch the area around the cafe, and waited. She felt foolish at first, a 66-year-old woman playing detective in a town where the most serious crime was usually graffiti or shoplifting. But she stayed. Around 10 o'clock, she saw one of the strangers, a man in his late 20s with dark hair and expensive sneakers, meet with 3 different teenagers in separate encounters. Each time, money changed hands for something the man provided. The teenagers looked around nervously before hurrying away. Erica took photos with her phone, zooming in to capture faces and license plate numbers. She documented the times and locations of each transaction. Old habits, returning as naturally as breathing. For the next week, Erica maintained her surveillance. She varied her locations and times, careful not to establish a pattern that might be noticed. She documented everything she saw. The same group of strange men kept appearing. They met with teenagers at predictable times and locations. And the teenagers, Tyler, Casey, and at least a dozen others, kept coming back for more. Erica also started asking careful questions at the cafe. She mentioned to Tom that Casey seemed stressed lately, watching for his reaction. She expressed concern to Sarah Chen that Hannah seemed tired. She listened to conversations about teenagers whose behavior had suddenly changed, sleeping all day, losing interest in school, becoming secretive and withdrawn. The pattern was clear. A drug distribution network had established itself in Redfield, targeting teenagers. The drugs were new and dangerous, based on the symptoms Erica had observed and the conversations she had overheard. And whoever was running the operation was organized and careful. Not the typical street-level dealers she had dealt with in Chicago, but professionals. Erica knew she should go to the police. Sheriff Tom Hendricks was a good man, honest and dedicated. But he was also young, only 35, and his experience was limited to the kinds of crimes that occurred in small towns. He had probably never dealt with an organized drug operation. By the time he figured out what was happening and called for help from state or federal agencies, the dealers might be gone, or the situation might be much worse. She could call her old contacts at the DEA or FBI, but that would mean revealing herself. Once law enforcement from Chicago got involved, questions would be asked about how she knew what was happening in Redfield. Her cover would be blown. And while the Vega cartel had been dismantled, its remnants still existed. If they learned where she would be in danger again. For several more days, Erica struggled with what to do. Every option seemed to carry risks. Going to the local police might alert the dealers before anything could be done. Calling federal agencies might expose her identity. Doing nothing meant watching teenagers get hurt. Then, something happened that made the decision for her. It was a Tuesday evening, and Erica was doing her surveillance routine from a parking lot across from Main Street. She saw Casey Morrison meet one of the dealers, a man she had started calling Sneakers because of his expensive footwear. The exchange was typical: money for product, quick and discreet. But then Erica saw Casey open the small bag he had been given, take out a pill, and swallow it immediately. Within minutes, Casey's behavior changed dramatically. He started walking erratically, stumbling as if drunk. He sat down hard on a bench, holding his head. Even from across the street, Erica could see that something was very wrong. She had two choices: maintain her cover and watch, or intervene and blow years of carefully constructed anonymity. It was not really a choice at all. Erica got out of her car and crossed the street quickly. Casey was now lying on the bench, his eyes rolling back in his head. She checked his pulse, too fast, and his pupils, dilated and unresponsive. "Casey, can you hear me?" She spoke clearly and calmly, using the voice she had perfected as a detective, dealing with people in crisis. He mumbled something incoherent. His skin was clammy, and he was starting to shake. Erica pulled out her phone and called 911. "This is Erica Collins. I need an ambulance at the corner of Main and 2nd. Teenager, possible drug overdose." The ambulance arrived within minutes, one of the benefits of a small town. The paramedics took over, and Erica stepped back. She gave them the information they needed about what she had witnessed, leaving out certain details about her surveillance. Tom Morrison arrived shortly after the ambulance, having been called by the dispatcher. His face was white with fear as he watched his son being loaded into the ambulance. "What happened?" he asked Erica, his voice shaking. "I saw him on the bench, not looking well. I called for help right away. The paramedics think he might have taken something." "Drugs? Casey doesn't do drugs." Erica put a hand on his arm. "Go with him to the hospital. They'll take care of him." After Tom left with his son, Erica stood alone on the street corner. Her hands were shaking, partly from adrenaline, partly from anger. These dealers had brought their poison to her town. They had hurt the son of a man she had served coffee to every morning for 15 years. They had turned Redfield from a safe haven into another battlefield in the endless war on drugs. And she was going to stop them. Detective Erica Collins might have retired 15 years ago. Detective Erica Collins might have died when she moved to this mountain town and started making coffee for a living. But the person who had brought down the Vega cartel, that person was still in there somewhere. And that person knew exactly what needed to be done. She just had to figure out how to do it without getting herself killed in the process. Casey Morrison survived. The emergency room doctors stabilized him, and after 2 days in the hospital, he was released with a warning about the dangers of unknown drugs. Tom was devastated and angry, alternating between wanting to protect his son and wanting answers about where the drugs had come from. Erica visited them at the hospital, bringing coffee and sandwiches for Tom, who had not left his son's side. Casey was asleep when she arrived, and Tom looked exhausted. "He's going to be okay," Tom said, as much to convince himself as to inform Erica. "The doctor said he was lucky you found him when you did. Another 15 minutes and—" He could not finish the sentence. "I'm glad I was there. He told me everything. Said there's a guy who's been selling pills to kids at school. Says lots of kids have been buying them. The guy told them it was like Adderall, something to help them study and stay awake. Casey tried one for the first time yesterday." Tom's hands clenched into fists. "I told Sheriff Hendricks. He's going to investigate." Erica nodded, but internally she was concerned. If the dealers knew the local sheriff was investigating, they would either disappear or become more careful. Time was critical. That evening, Erica made a decision. She retrieved the old burner phone from where she had hidden it in her house and sat down at her kitchen table. After 15 years of silence, she was about to break her self-imposed rule. She dialed Michael Chen's number. She did not even know if it still worked, if he still had the same phone after all these years. It rang 3 times. Then, hello? Hearing his voice after so long made her throat tight. Michael, it's Erica. There was a long pause. Erica? Is that really you? Yes. After 15 years? Not even a Christmas card, and now you call? I'm sorry. I had to stay away. You know that. I know. His voice softened. Are you okay? Are you safe? I'm fine. I've been fine. I'm living in a small town in Montana called Redfield. I've been working as a barista. A barista? She could hear the smile in his voice. That's about as far from narcotics detective as you can get. That was the point. She paused. Michael, I need your help. I need information. What's going on? Erica told him everything. The teenage symptoms, the strangers in town, the surveillance she had conducted, the drug deals she had witnessed, Casey's overdose. She kept it concise and factual, falling back into the professional language they had used when working cases together. When she finished, Michael was quiet for a moment. Then, "You're doing it again. You know that, right? You can't help yourself. Kids are getting hurt, and there are police to handle it. Local sheriff, state police, DEA. That's their job now, not yours. The local sheriff is a good man, but he's in over his head. By the time he figures out what's happening, gets approval for help from state or federal agencies, and they actually show up, it could be weeks. These dealers will either be gone or so well established that taking them down becomes much harder. So call the DEA anonymously. Give them what you know." I might need to do that eventually, but first I need to know what I'm dealing with. These aren't street dealers, Michael. They're organized, professional, careful. I need to know if this is part of something bigger. She heard him sigh. What do you need from me? Information. You still have contacts in narcotics, right? Some. I retired 5 years ago after the injury, but I consult sometimes. I still talk to people. I need to know if there have been reports of new synthetic drugs in the region. Something that looks like Adderall, but is much more dangerous. I need to know if there are any trafficking organizations currently active in Montana or surrounding states. And I need to know if... She hesitated. If the Vega cartel is still operational. Jesus, Erica, you think this might be related to your old case? I don't know, but I need to rule it out. If somehow they've tracked me here... That's a stretch. The Vega leadership went to prison. The organization was dismantled. What's left is fractured and weak. But not gone. No, not gone. Another sigh. Okay, give me a few days. I'll make some calls, see what I can find out. But Erica, be careful. You're not a cop anymore. You don't have backup. You don't have authority. If this goes wrong... I know. I'll be careful. No, you won't. You never were. But try anyway. After the call, Erica sat in her kitchen for a long time, staring at nothing. She had crossed a line. She had reconnected with her old life. There was no going back now. Over the next few days, Erica continued her surveillance while maintaining her normal routine at the cafe. She documented every drug deal she witnessed, photographed every dealer she saw, and noted every teenager who was involved. She created a chart showing the pattern of activity. Most deals happened after school, between 3 and 6 p.m., concentrated around Main Street and the park near the high school. She also started doing research. Using the cafe's computer during slow periods, she searched for information about drug trafficking in Montana. She read news articles about synthetic drug problems in other small towns. She looked for patterns and similarities. What she found was disturbing. Over the past year, several small towns across Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho had experienced sudden increases in teenage drug use. The drugs were always synthetic, always sold by professional-looking outsiders, and always resulted in overdoses and hospitalizations. Law enforcement had made some arrests, but the organizations seemed to adapt and move to new locations quickly. This was not random. This was a coordinated operation targeting small towns, places with limited law enforcement resources, where young people were bored and isolated, where it was easy to establish a market and hard to get caught. 3 days after calling Michael, he called back. Erica stepped into the cafe's office to take the call. "I've got some information," Michael said. "First, the good news. This doesn't appear to be related to the Vega cartel. They're still in pieces, fighting among themselves, focused on territory disputes in Texas and California. No evidence they're active in Montana." That is good news. The bad news is that you've got a different problem. There's a new trafficking organization that's been active in the Mountain States for about 2 years. They call themselves the Riverside Syndicate. Small operation compared to the cartels, but sophisticated. They specialize in synthetic drugs, particularly modified stimulants that mimic prescription medications but are much more powerful and addictive. How small? Maybe 50 people total. They have chemists who manufacture the drugs, distributors who transport them, and sales teams who sell them in targeted communities. They've been very successful because they focus on small towns that don't have strong law enforcement. They move in, establish a market, milk it for a few months, then move on before the authorities can build a case. And you think they're in Redfield? Based on what you've described, it fits their pattern perfectly. Small, isolated town, limited police resources, vulnerable teenage population. It's exactly what they look for. Erica felt a chill. What else do you know about them? Not much. DEA has been trying to build a case for a year, but they're careful. They use encrypted communications. They don't stay in one place long enough for surveillance to be effective. And they've avoided major violence that would draw federal attention. They're smart. Do you have any information on their leadership? DEA thinks the operation is run by a man named Victor Reeves, former pharmaceutical sales rep who got fired for selling samples to dealers. He's got a background in chemistry and business, and he's assembled a team of people with complementary skills. They're not thugs, Erica. They're professionals treating this like a legitimate business, which makes them more dangerous in some ways. Exactly. They're not going to do anything that draws attention. No shootings, no kidnappings, no obvious violence. They just quietly poison communities and move on. Can you send me what you have on them? Photos, known associates, anything? I can send you what's publicly available. But Erica, you need to turn this over to the DEA. They have an active investigation. They need to know what's happening in Redfield. I will. But I need a little more time first. If I call them now, it'll take them days to verify my information and decide what to do. In that time, the syndicate might realize they've been spotted and disappear. I need to gather enough evidence to make it impossible for them to ignore. Always the same, Erica. Going it alone. I'm not going it alone. I have you. I'm 1,000 miles away. I can't help you if things go wrong. I know, but I can't just sit back and do nothing. Not when I can make a difference. Michael was quiet for a moment. I'm going to send you everything I can find on the Riverside Syndicate, and I'm going to make some discreet inquiries with the DEA, Let them know there might be activity in Redfield without mentioning you. But please, be careful. You're not invincible, no matter how many cases you solved. I'm 66 years old and make coffee for a living. I'm very aware I'm not invincible. After the call, Erica spent hours reviewing the information Michael sent. Photos of Victor Reeves and his known associates, reports on their methods, summaries of their activities in other towns. The more she read, the more impressed and concerned she became. This was not a gang of street dealers. This was an organized criminal enterprise run by intelligent, disciplined people who knew how to avoid detection. But they had made one mistake. They had come to her town. And while Detective Erica Collins might have retired, she had not forgotten how to take down criminal organizations. She just needed a plan. And like any good investigation, it would start with gathering intelligence. Over the next 2 weeks, Erica lived 2 lives. By day, she was the friendly barista everyone knew, making coffee and chatting with customers, asking about their families and listening to their small-town concerns. By night, she was a detective again, conducting surveillance, gathering evidence, and building a case against the Riverside Syndicate. She identified 5 members of the syndicate operating in Redfield. There was Sneakers. She now knew his real name was Marcus Wade, age 28, with a background in pharmaceutical sales. There was a woman in her early 30s named Lisa Brennan who posed as a health and wellness consultant and specifically targeted teenage girls, telling them the drugs would help with weight loss and focus. There was an older man, probably in his 50s, named Thomas Garrett, who posed as a businessman and rented office space downtown as cover. And there were 2 younger men who did most of the actual transactions, Daniel Cruz and Alex Foster, both in their early 20s. Erica documented their patterns. Marcus and Lisa did most of the recruiting, identifying vulnerable teenagers and making the initial contact. Daniel and Alex handled the actual sales, meeting buyers at predetermined locations. Thomas seemed to be the manager, coordinating activities and probably reporting back to Victor Reeves, though Erica had not yet seen Reeves himself in Redfield. She learned their schedules, their habits, where they stayed, 3 different rental properties on the outskirts of town, and how they communicated, primarily through encrypted messaging apps on their phones. She took photos and videos, always careful to remain undetected. She documented at least 40 separate drug transactions over 2 weeks. But surveillance alone would not be enough to stop them. She needed hard evidence, the kind that would force immediate action from law enforcement and could not be dismissed or delayed. She needed to know where they stored their drug supply, how much inventory they had, and how their distribution network operated, which meant she needed to get closer, much closer. The opportunity came from an unexpected source. Hannah Chen, Sarah's daughter, came into the cafe alone one afternoon. The girl looked terrible, pale, thin, with dark circles under her eyes. When Erica brought her the hot chocolate she ordered, she noticed Hannah's hands were shaking. "Hannah, honey, are you feeling all right?" The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Miss Collins, can I talk to you? In private?" Erica glanced around the cafe. Only 2 other customers, both absorbed in their laptops. She led Hannah to a table in the far corner and sat down across from her. "What's wrong?" "I did something stupid, really stupid. And now I don't know what to do." "You can tell me. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out." Hannah took a shaky breath. "You know those pills everyone's been taking? The ones that sent Casey to the hospital?" "Yes." "I've been taking them. for 2 months now. This woman named Lisa said they would help me study better, help me lose weight, make me more focused. And at first, they did. I felt amazing. But now, she started crying. Now I can't stop. I need them every day. If I don't take them, I feel horrible. I shake, I get sick, I can't think straight. Erica reached across the table and took Hannah's hand. You're addicted. I know, and I want to stop, but I don't know how. My mom would be so disappointed if she found out. And these people, they're starting to scare me. Lisa keeps telling me I need to buy more, and the price keeps going up. She says if I can't pay, maybe I can help them sell to other kids instead. This was exactly what Erica had been waiting for, a way to get inside their operation. But it meant putting Hannah at risk, and that was something she would not do. Hannah, you're going to stop right now, today. I'm going to help you, but you have to do exactly what I say. First, you need to tell your mother. I know you're scared, but she needs to know so she can help you. I can't! She'll be so upset! She'll be more upset if something happens to you. Your mother is a smart, caring woman. She'll help you get treatment, and I'll be there with you when you tell her if you want. What about Lisa and the others? They'll be angry if I stop buying. Let me worry about them. But I need you to do something for me. When Lisa contacts you next, I want you to tell her you'll think about helping them sell. Don't commit to anything, but don't say no either. Can you do that? Hannah wiped her eyes. Why? Because I'm going to stop these people, but I need time to gather information. If they think you might be useful to them, they'll leave you alone for a few days. That gives us time to get you help and for me to finish what I'm doing. Are you working with the police? Not exactly, but I know what I'm doing. Trust me. That evening, Erica went with Hannah to tell Sarah. As expected, Sarah was shocked and upset, but also relieved that her daughter had come forward. She scheduled appointments with a doctor and a counselor, and she called Sheriff Hendricks to report what had happened. Erica stayed in the background during these conversations, but she made sure Sarah knew that she would continue to support Hannah however she could. She also made it clear that the local authorities were already aware of the drug problem and were investigating, which was technically true, even if the investigation was being conducted by a retired detective working independently. With Hannah safe and getting help, Erica turned her attention to the next phase of her investigation. She needed to find where the syndicate kept their drug supply and how they planned to expand their operation in Redfield. For that, she would need to take a risk. One evening, Erica followed Marcus Wade from the location where he had met with several teenagers to a house on the east side of town. The house was one of the 3 rental properties she had identified as being used by the syndicate. She parked a block away and watched. Marcus entered the house and stayed for about an hour. During that time, Erica saw lights moving inside and shadows passing by windows. When Marcus left, Thomas Garrett arrived. More activity inside the house. Then Thomas also left. Erica knew this was likely where they stored their inventory, and possibly where they counted money and made plans. If she could get inside and gather evidence, photos of drugs, financial records, communications, she would have everything she needed to bring down the operation. But breaking into the house was risky and probably illegal. Even if she found evidence, it might not be admissible in court if obtained improperly. She needed another approach. The answer came to her as she was driving home. She did not need to break in. She needed someone to invite her in. The next day, Erica called Sheriff Tom Hendricks and asked to speak with him privately. They met at his office, a small building on Main Street that served as Redfield's police station. "Miss Collins, thank you for coming in," Sheriff Hendricks said as she sat down in his office. He was a tall man, probably 6'3", with sandy hair and a sincere face. Erica had always liked him. He was honest and cared about the town, even if his experience was limited. "Thank you for seeing me, Sheriff. I want to talk to you about the drug problem." "I'm taking it seriously, I promise. After what happened to Casey Morrison and now Sarah Chen's daughter, I've been working with state police to develop a response." "I know you are, and I want to help." He looked surprised. "Help how?" "I have some experience with this kind of thing. Before I moved to Redfield, I worked in law enforcement. I was a detective with the Chicago Police Department for 25 years, specializing in narcotics." Sheriff Hendricks stared at her. "You're kidding." "I'm not. I retired 15 years ago and moved here for a fresh start. I didn't tell anyone about my background because I wanted to leave that life behind. But now my town is being threatened, and I can't just stand by." Wow. Okay. So you're saying you know how these operations work?" "Very well. And I've been doing some observation over the past few weeks. I've identified 5 individuals who I believe are distributing drugs to teenagers in Redfield. I have photos, license plates, addresses, and documentation of multiple transactions." She pulled out her phone and showed him the evidence she had gathered. His eyes widened as he scrolled through the photos and videos. This is incredible. How did you get all this?" "Old habits. Sheriff, these people are professionals. They're not local thugs. They're part of an organized trafficking operation called the Riverside Syndicate that targets small towns. They're smart, careful, and very good at what they do. If you approach this the wrong way, they'll disappear before you can build a case." "So what do you suggest?" "First, I think we need to bring in federal help, specifically the DEA. They have an active investigation into the Riverside Syndicate. Second, we need to locate their drug supply. They must be keeping inventory somewhere in town. If we can find it and secure it, we have physical evidence. Third, we need to coordinate so that when we move, we get everyone at once. If we arrest 1 or 2 but the others escape, they'll warn the rest of the organization and we'll lose our chance to dismantle the whole operation." Sheriff Hendricks leaned back in his chair. "I should be proud that someone in my town is this capable. Instead, I'm feeling a little inadequate." Erica smiled. "Don't. You're doing your job. You're protecting people. I'm just bringing some specialized knowledge to help. Think of me as a consultant." "A consultant who conducted illegal surveillance without a warrant?" "I'm a private citizen who took photographs in public places of suspicious activity. That's not illegal. And everything I've gathered is admissible because I'm not law enforcement anymore. I don't need warrants." He thought about that. "You've really thought this through." "Like I said, old habits." Over the next hour, Erica briefed Sheriff Hendricks on everything she knew about the Riverside Syndicate, their methods, and their operation in Redfield. She showed him the information Michael had sent her about Victor Reeves and his organization. She explained the pattern of activity and her theory about where they might be keeping their drug supply. Sheriff Hendricks took notes and asked good questions. Erica was impressed. He might be young and inexperienced with major crimes, but he was smart and willing to learn. "Okay," he said finally. "Here's what we'll do. I'll contact the DEA and share this information. I'll request immediate assistance. In the meantime, we continue surveillance and gather more evidence. When the DEA arrives, We coordinate a takedown operation. Does that work? It does. But Sheriff, time is critical. The longer we wait, the more chances these people have to hurt someone or realize they've been spotted. I'll make the call today. And Miss Collins, thank you for telling me, for helping, for caring about Redfield enough to get involved. It's my home too. As Erica left the sheriff's office, she felt both relief and anxiety. Relief that she was no longer working alone, that official law enforcement was now involved. Anxiety because once you brought in federal agencies, things moved slowly. Procedures had to be followed, approvals had to be obtained, resources had to be allocated. It could take days or even weeks. She hoped they had that much time. But she was about to discover they did not. 2 days after her meeting with Sheriff Hendricks, Erica's carefully laid plans began to unravel. It started with a phone call. Michael Chen called her burner phone early in the morning, before she had even left for the cafe. Erica, we have a problem. What is it? I just heard from my contact at the DEA. Someone put in a request for information about the Riverside Syndicate's activities in Montana. The request came from a Sheriff Tom Hendricks in Redfield. That was me. I talked to him 2 days ago. He said he would contact the DEA. I know, but here's the thing. Requests like that go through channels. They get reviewed, evaluated, prioritized. The DEA is understaffed and overworked. They have hundreds of active investigations. A request about possible drug activity in a small town goes to the bottom of the list. How long until they respond? Could be weeks, could be months. Erica felt her stomach sink. We don't have weeks. I know. That's why I'm calling. My contact is expediting the request as a personal favor to me, but even expedited, we're looking at minimum 7 to 10 days before they can send anyone to Redfield. In 10 days, the syndicate could be gone, or they could hurt more kids. I know. I'm sorry. After the call, Erica sat at her kitchen table, thinking. She had hoped that official law enforcement would take over, allowing her to step back and return to her quiet life. But that was not going to happen fast enough. She was going to have to continue the investigation herself, which meant taking bigger risks. That day at the cafe, Erica noticed something that confirmed her fears. Marcus Wade came in for coffee, the first time any of the syndicate members had entered her cafe. He ordered a black coffee and sat at a table, working on a laptop. Erica served him with her usual friendly demeanor, but every instinct was screaming. Why was he here? Was it just coincidence, or was this a reconnaissance mission? Did they suspect someone was watching them? As she refilled coffee for other customers and made drinks, she kept Marcus in her peripheral vision. He seemed to be working, typing on the laptop, occasionally making notes in a small notebook. But she noticed he was also watching the cafe, observing customers, paying particular attention to teenagers who came in. After 45 minutes, he finished his coffee and left. Erica waited a few minutes, then went to the table where he had been sitting. She found a napkin he had used, a small thing that most people would not notice. But written on it in ink was a series of numbers. 24, 36, 14. A combination, probably to a safe or lockbox. Erica slipped the napkin into her pocket and continued working, her mind racing. This was useful information, but what did it open? And why had Marcus been careless enough to write it down and leave it behind? Unless it was not careless. Unless it was a message. That evening, Erica did not go to her usual surveillance position. Instead, she went home and called Michael again. I think they might know someone is watching them. She explained about Marcus coming to the cafe and leaving the combination written on a napkin. Michael was silent for a moment. That's concerning. Either he's very sloppy, which doesn't fit the profile of the syndicate, or he's testing to see if anyone is paying attention. That's what I thought. Erica, maybe you should pull back. If they suspect something, this could get dangerous. I can't pull back. We're running out of time. The DEA won't be here for at least a week, and in that time, who knows what could happen? Another kid could overdose. The syndicate could move on to their next target town. I'm so close to having everything I need to stop them. Close how? I know where they're operating from. I have documentation of their activities. I have evidence of multiple transactions. What I don't have is their drug supply. If I can locate that and document it, we have physical evidence that can't be disputed. Then, even if the syndicate tries to leave town, we can have them intercepted. And how are you planning to locate their supply? That combination might be the key. If I can figure out what it opens, you're talking about breaking and entering. I'm talking about documenting criminal activity. Erica, listen to yourself. You're 66 years old. You're not a cop anymore. You don't have backup. You don't have authority. If you get caught breaking into one of their properties, at best you get arrested. At worst, I know the risks. Do you? Because it sounds like you're so focused on stopping these people that you've forgotten you're not invincible. You've forgotten what happened the last time you went up against a drug organization. That hit hard. Michael was right, of course. She was letting her old instincts take over, pushing herself toward risky decisions without fully considering the consequences. I'm sorry, she said quietly. You're right. I'm being reckless. No, you're being you, which is what makes you good at this, but also what gets you hurt. Promise me you'll think this through before you do anything stupid. I promise. But after hanging up, Erica knew she was going to have to do something. Sitting back and waiting was not an option, not when she had come this far. The next day, she got a piece of information that made her decision for her. Sarah Chen came into the cafe, looking distraught. Erica, can I talk to you? They went to the back office, and Sarah closed the door. It's Hannah. She's missing. Erica felt ice in her veins. What do you mean, missing? She didn't come home from school yesterday. I thought maybe she was with friends, but I called everyone. No one has seen her. I reported it to Sheriff Hendricks, but he said teenagers sometimes run away and usually come back within 24 hours. But I know my daughter. She wouldn't just run away. Not now, not when she's getting help. When did you last speak to her? Yesterday morning before school. She seemed okay, maybe a little nervous. She said that woman, Lisa, had been texting her again, asking her to help with something. But Hannah said she was going to ignore her like you told her to. Lisa, the syndicate member who recruited teenage girls. Sarah, I need to tell you something. I've been working with Sheriff Hendricks on the drug investigation. I have some background in this kind of work, and I think Hannah's disappearance might be related to the people selling drugs. You think they took her? I think they might have convinced her to go somewhere with them. These people are manipulators. They're good at making teenagers feel like they have no choice. What do we do? Let me make some calls. I'm going to find her. After Sarah left, Erica immediately called Sheriff Hendricks and told him about Hannah's disappearance. He said he would start a formal missing persons investigation, but that he had limited resources and manpower. Sheriff, I think the Riverside Syndicate has her. They might be trying to recruit her to sell drugs, or they might be using her as leverage to keep other teenagers from talking to authorities. That's a serious accusation. Do you have any evidence? Just the text messages Hannah mentioned to her mother. But I know how these organizations work. When teenagers try to leave, dealers sometimes use coercion to bring them back. I'll look into it. But Erica, I need to be careful. I can't go raiding houses based on suspicion. I need probable cause. I understand. But every hour we wait is an hour that Hannah is in danger. That evening, Erica made her decision. She could not wait for official channels. She could not wait for probable cause and warrants and proper procedures. Hannah was missing, possibly in danger, and Erica had the skills and knowledge to find her. She was going to find the syndicate's storage location. She was going to get evidence. And if Hannah was there, she was going to get her out. It was risky. It was possibly illegal. It might expose her identity and put her in danger. But 15 years ago, she had sworn an oath to protect and serve. That oath did not have an expiration date just because she had retired. And Hannah was not just a case file or a statistic. She was the daughter of someone Erica saw every day, a girl who had trusted Erica enough to ask for help. Erica would not let her down. Erica spent the afternoon preparing. She had not done anything like this in 15 years, but the skills came back naturally. She dressed in dark, practical clothing, black jeans, a dark blue jacket, comfortable shoes. She gathered tools she might need: a small flashlight, her phone with the camera ready, gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints. She also prepared for the possibility that things might go wrong. She wrote a letter to Sheriff Hendricks explaining everything she knew about the Riverside Syndicate, where their properties were located, and where she was planning to go tonight. She sealed it in an envelope and left it on her kitchen table with instructions that if she did not return by morning, he should come to her house and read it. It was not a perfect solution, but it was better than nothing. At 10 o'clock that evening, Erica drove to the east side of Redfield, to the rental house where she had seen Marcus Wade and Thomas Garrett entering and exiting. She parked 3 blocks away and walked, keeping to shadows, moving quietly. Years of experience had taught her how to move without drawing attention: steady pace, natural gait, nothing that would make someone look twice. The house was dark. No cars in the driveway. Either no one was there, or they were being very quiet. Erica circled the property, staying in the darkness beyond the reach of the streetlights. The house was a modest 2-story with a small yard. There were no lights on inside, no movement she could see. The backyard had a tall wooden fence, which would provide cover if she needed to get closer. She moved to the back of the property and found a gate. It was locked, but it was an old lock, the kind that could be opened with a credit card and some patience. Within 2 minutes, she was in the backyard. The back door had a more serious lock, but there was a window that looked promising. She checked it carefully. No alarm sensors that she could see. She tried it, and to her surprise, it slid open, unlocked. Either someone had been careless, or it was a trap. Erica paused, every instinct telling her to be careful. But she had come this far. Hannah might be inside. Evidence was inside. She climbed through the window as quietly as she could, finding herself in a kitchen. The house smelled of stale food and chemicals, probably whatever they were using to cut or process the drugs. She stood still for a long moment, listening. No sounds, no movement. She turned on her small flashlight, keeping it pointed down, and began to search. The kitchen was ordinary: dirty dishes in the sink, takeout containers on the counter, nothing unusual. The living room had furniture, but looked unlived in. No personal items, no decorations. This was definitely not a real home. Upstairs, she found 3 bedrooms. One had a mattress on the floor and some men's clothing, probably where Marcus or one of the others slept occasionally. Another bedroom was empty except for some boxes. The 3rd bedroom made her stop. It was set up as an office. A desk with a laptop, papers scattered across it, file folders stacked on a chair. On one wall was a whiteboard with notes and diagrams. A map of Redfield with locations marked, lists of names. She recognized several as teenagers from town. Financial calculations. This was their operational center. Erica began photographing everything with her phone. The whiteboard, the papers on the desk. She opened file folders and photographed their contents: financial records, communication logs, information about their targets. One folder was labeled Inventory. She opened it and found what she was looking for: a list of drugs, quantities, locations. Most of the inventory was kept at a separate location, an address she did not recognize but could look up. A smaller amount was kept here, in a safe in the basement. The combination. That napkin Marcus had left at the cafe. It was for the safe here. Erica made her way downstairs carefully. She found the basement door and descended into darkness. The basement was unfinished, with concrete floors and walls. In one corner, she found a large steel safe. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photo she had taken of the napkin. 24, 36, 14. She turned the dial carefully, the way she had been taught years ago in training. Right to 24, left past 24 to 36, right to 14. The safe clicked open. Inside were plastic bags filled with pills, hundreds, maybe thousands of them. There were also bundles of cash, probably tens of thousands of dollars. And there was a notebook with names and amounts, the drug debt records. Erica photographed everything. This was the evidence they needed: physical proof of drug distribution, records of sales, financial transactions. This would be enough to arrest everyone involved and dismantle the operation. But Hannah was not here. Erica closed the safe and reset the combination. She needed to leave without them knowing anyone had been inside. If she left obvious signs of a break-in, they would destroy evidence and disappear. But if everything looked undisturbed, they would not know their operation had been compromised until it was too late. She made her way back upstairs, moving carefully, making sure she left no traces. She was almost to the window she had entered through when she heard a sound that made her blood run cold. A car door closing. Voices outside. Someone was coming. Erica moved quickly but quietly to the window. She could see headlights in the driveway. 2 men were getting out of a car, Marcus Wade and Thomas Garrett. She had maybe 30 seconds before they entered the house. Erica slid out the window, dropped to the ground, and ran for the back fence in a low crouch. She heard the front door opening as she reached the fence. She climbed over it, not easy at 66, and dropped into the neighbor's yard just as lights came on in the house she had been inside. Her heart was pounding, but she forced herself to move calmly, walking through the neighbor's yard to the street, then down the sidewalk at a normal pace. Just someone out for an evening walk, nothing suspicious. When she was several blocks away, she allowed herself to breathe normally. That had been close. Too close. Michael had been right. She was being reckless. But she had gotten what she needed. The photographs on her phone contained evidence that would bring down the Riverside Syndicate's operation in Redfield. Combined with Sheriff Hendrick's official investigation and the DEA's resources, they could arrest everyone involved. Now, she just needed to find Hannah. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photographs she had taken of the inventory records. One of the addresses listed jumped out at her. It was not in Redfield proper. It was on Old Mill Road, about 5 miles outside of town. A remote location. Perfect for storing large quantities of drugs without being observed. It was also the kind of place where they might keep a teenage girl if they were trying to coerce her into helping them. Erica knew she should call Sheriff Hendricks now, give him the evidence, let him take over. That was the smart thing to do, the safe thing to do. But Hannah had been missing for more than 24 hours. If she was being held at that location, every minute mattered. Erica got in her car and started driving. Old Mill Road wound through dense forest, climbing into the foothills of the mountains. The location Erica was heading to was an old hunting cabin, according to county records she had looked up on her phone while driving. It had been vacant for years before being rented 6 months ago by someone using a fake name. She parked her car a half-mile away from the cabin and walked the rest of the way, using her flashlight sparingly. The moon provided some light, and her eyes adjusted to the darkness. The forest was quiet, except for the sound of wind in the trees and the distant call of an owl. As she approached the cabin, she saw lights through the windows. Someone was definitely there. A car was parked outside, a black SUV with tinted windows. Erica circled the cabin carefully, looking for the best approach. The cabin was small, maybe 3 rooms total, built of logs and starting to show its age. There was a front door and a back door, several windows. She could hear voices inside, at least 2 people, maybe more. She moved closer to one of the windows and carefully looked inside. The cabin's interior was divided into a main room with a kitchen area and what looked like 2 small bedrooms off to the side. In the main room, she could see Lisa Brennan and Daniel Cruz, the 2 younger syndicate members. They were sitting at a table, counting money. And in one of the bedrooms, visible through an open door, she could see Hannah Chen. The girl was sitting on a bed, hugging her knees, looking terrified. Erica's jaw clenched. They had her. The question was, how to get her out without anyone getting hurt. She moved around to the other side of the cabin, trying to see into the other bedroom, and nearly stumbled over something in the dark. Looking down, she saw it was a portable generator currently running, the source of the cabin's electricity. An idea formed. If she cut the power, it would create confusion. In that confusion, she might be able to get Hannah out. But she would need to move fast, and she would need Hannah to be ready to run. Erica pulled out her phone and composed a text message to Hannah's number. "Hannah, it's Miss Collins. I'm outside the cabin. When the lights go out, go to the back door and run toward the forest. I'll be waiting. Trust me." She sent the message and watched through the window. A few seconds later, she saw Hannah pull out her phone and read the message. The girl's eyes widened, and she looked around nervously. Then, she gave a small nod. Erica moved to the generator. It was a simple setup. Just turn off the power switch and the cabin would go dark. She took a deep breath, said a silent prayer that this would work, and flipped the switch. The generator died. The lights inside the cabin went out. Immediately, she heard voices shouting in confusion. Erica ran to the back door and positioned herself in the shadows beside it. Seconds later, the door opened and Hannah came running out. "Here," Erica whispered urgently. "This way!" They ran together into the forest, moving as quickly as they could in the darkness. Behind them, Erica could hear more shouting. A flashlight beam swept through the trees, searching. "They're looking for me," Hannah gasped as they ran. "Just keep moving. We need to get to my car." They ran for what felt like forever, but was probably only 5 minutes. Erica's lungs burned. She was in good shape for her age, but this was intense. Hannah was younger and faster, but fear gave Erica extra energy. Behind them, she could still hear voices, but they seemed to be getting more distant. The syndicate members were searching, but they were searching in the wrong direction. Finally, they reached Erica's car. She unlocked it, and they both got in quickly. Erica started the engine and drove away without turning on her headlights until they were well down the road. Hannah was crying now, the stress and fear finally overwhelming her. Erica reached over and took her hand. "You're safe now. I've got you." "They said I had to help them sell drugs or they would hurt my mom. They said if I told anyone, they would make sure everyone at school knew I was an addict. I didn't know what to do." "You don't have to do anything. We're going straight to Sheriff Hendricks. You're going to tell him everything, and I'm going to give him evidence that will put these people away for a very long time." "How did you find me?" "Old skills. I used to be a detective." Hannah looked at her with surprise. "You were a cop?" "A long time ago, but some things you never forget." They drove to the sheriff's office. It was late, but Sheriff Hendricks had given Erica his personal number, and she called him on the way. He met them at the station within minutes. For the next 2 hours, Erica and Hannah told Sheriff Hendricks everything. Hannah described how Lisa had recruited her, how the drugs had made her feel at first, how she had become addicted, and how she had been taken to the cabin when she tried to stop using. Erica provided the photographs from her phone, all the evidence she had gathered from the house on the east side of town. Sheriff Hendricks looked at the photos with growing amazement. "This is comprehensive. Miss Collins, you really were a detective." "I really was. And Sheriff, we need to move fast. Now that they know Hannah is gone, they'll realize their operation has been compromised. They might try to flee." "I'll call the state police immediately. We'll coordinate raids on all their locations. And I'll contact the DEA again. When they see this evidence, they'll make this a priority." "There's one more thing. I think Victor Reeves, the head of the Riverside Syndicate, might be here in Redfield. Or he'll be arriving soon. They wouldn't let a major operation like this run without direct supervision, especially if they suspect problems." "You think he might be at one of the properties you identified?" "It's possible. Or he might be on his way. But if we can catch him along with his subordinates, we can take down the entire organization." Sheriff Hendricks nodded. "Leave it with me. You and Hannah should go home, get some rest. I'll have an officer escort you both to make sure you're safe." "What about my mom?" Hannah asked. "She must be so worried." "I called her when you first went missing," Sheriff Hendricks said gently. "I'll call her right now and tell her you've been found and that you're safe. She can meet you at home." As Erica and Hannah left the sheriff's office with their police escort, Erica felt a mix of relief and lingering anxiety. They had found Hannah. They had gathered evidence. Law enforcement was now fully engaged. But the Riverside Syndicate was still operational. Until everyone was arrested and their drugs were seized, Redfield was not safe. And Erica had a feeling that the most dangerous part was yet to come. The next morning moved with surprising speed. Sheriff Hendricks had worked through the night, coordinating with state police and pushing the DEA to take immediate action. The evidence Erica had gathered was so comprehensive that it left no room for bureaucratic delay. By 10 a.m., a team of DEA agents had arrived in Redfield from their regional office. They were led by a woman named Agent Sarah Martinez, a 15-year veteran who had been tracking the Riverside Syndicate for over a year. When she met with Erica, there was instant mutual respect between two professionals who understood the work. "Miss Collins, Your surveillance and evidence gathering is some of the best work I've seen from a non-law enforcement source, Agent Martinez said as they reviewed Erica's photographs and notes. If you ever want to come out of retirement, we could use someone with your skills. Erica smiled. I think I'm done with this kind of work, but thank you. Fair enough. Let's talk about how we're going to take these people down. The plan was developed over the course of several hours. Multiple teams would execute simultaneous raids on all three properties being used by the Riverside Syndicate: the house on the east side, where Erica had found the operational center, the cabin on Old Mill Road, where Hannah had been held, and a third property on the west side of town that rental records showed had been leased by the same fake identity. Additionally, based on phone records that the DEA had been able to obtain with emergency warrants, they had identified that Victor Reeves was indeed in Redfield. He was staying at a motel on the highway outside of town, using yet another fake name. The DEA would arrest him separately. The raids were scheduled for 4 p.m., timed to catch the syndicate members when they were most likely to be at the properties preparing for the evening's drug distribution. Erica was not allowed to participate in the raids. She was a civilian, and it would be both dangerous and legally problematic. But Agent Martinez agreed to let her monitor the operations from a command post that was set up at the sheriff's office. At 3:30 p.m., the teams moved into position. Erica sat in Sheriff Hendrick's office, listening to radio communications and watching on a laptop screen as real-time updates came in. Her heart was pounding with a familiar mix of anticipation and anxiety. She had planned and participated in dozens of operations like this during her career, but it never got easier. There was always the risk that something could go wrong. At 4 p.m. exactly, Agent Martinez gave the signal. All teams, execute. The radio came alive with chatter as the raids began simultaneously. Erica listened intently, trying to track what was happening at each location. The East Side house was first. Team 1, entry made. 3 suspects in custody: Marcus Wade, Thomas Garrett, and Alex Foster. No resistance. Securing the safe now. Relief washed over Erica. 3 of the 5 syndicate members arrested without incident. Then, from the cabin. Team 2, entry made. 2 suspects in custody: Lisa Brennan and Daniel Cruz. No resistance. Location is secure. All 5 of the distributors were now in custody, but the most important target was still out there. Team 3, entering motel room now. There was a long pause. Erica found herself holding her breath. Suspect is attempting to flee through the bathroom window. Officers in pursuit. Erica could hear Agent Martinez on the radio. Do not let him escape. I repeat, contain the suspect. More tense moments. The sound of running, shouting, a door slamming. Then, finally, suspect in custody. Victor Reeves is arrested. The command post erupted in subdued celebration. They had done it. The entire Redfield operation of the Riverside Syndicate had been dismantled in a single coordinated action. Over the next few hours, the full scope of what they had accomplished became clear. In addition to arresting 6 people, they had seized approximately 50,000 pills, over $200,000 in cash, detailed financial records, and communication devices that would help the DEA track down other syndicate operations across the region. More importantly, they had protected the teenagers of Redfield from further harm. Medical teams were on standby to help any young people who needed treatment for addiction. Counselors were available to talk to families. Sheriff Hendricks held a press conference to explain what had happened and to reassure the community. That evening, exhausted but satisfied, Erica finally went home. She made herself dinner, took a long, hot shower, and sat on her back porch watching the sun set over the mountains. Her phone rang. It was Michael. "I heard what happened. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. We got them all." "You know you could have been killed, right? Going into that cabin alone, getting Hannah out, that was incredibly dangerous." "I know, but I couldn't leave her there. And it worked out." "This time? But what about next time?" "There won't be a next time. This is it. I'm done playing detective. I'm going back to my quiet life, making coffee and talking to customers about their gardens." "Sure you are." "I mean it, Michael. This was a one-time thing, an emergency. Now it's over." "If you say so. But Erica, I'm proud of you. You saved a lot of kids. You stopped bad people from doing bad things. That's what we always tried to do. And you proved you can still do it." "Thank you. That means a lot." "You take care of yourself. And try to avoid any more criminal organizations for a while, okay?" "I'll do my best." After hanging up, Erica sat in the gathering darkness and thought about everything that had happened. For 2 weeks, she had been Detective Erica Collins again, observing, investigating, taking risks, stopping criminals. And it had felt good. It had felt right. But it had also been exhausting and dangerous. She was 66 years old. She had earned her peaceful retirement. She had earned the right to just make coffee and enjoy her quiet town. Still, as she went to bed that night, she could not help but feel a sense of satisfaction. She had made a difference. She had protected people who mattered to her. She had proven that even at her age, even after 15 years away from law enforcement, she still had the skills and the courage to do what needed to be done. Detective Erica Collins might have retired, but she had never really been gone. She had just been waiting for the moment when she was needed again. And when that moment had come, she had been ready. The weeks following the arrests were busy ones in Redfield. The trial of the Riverside Syndicate members became national news, drawing reporters from major outlets who wanted to cover the story of how a small mountain town had taken down a sophisticated drug trafficking organization. Erica tried to stay out of the spotlight as much as possible. She gave a statement to the DEA and testified at the preliminary hearings, but she declined all interview requests from journalists. She did not want her face on television. She did not want her name in newspapers. Even after 15 years, she was cautious about her identity being too public. But word spread through Redfield about what she had done. It started with Sheriff Hendricks, who could not help but praise her work in his press conferences. Then Hannah and her family told their story, including how Ms. Collins from the cafe had saved Hannah's life. Other teenagers came forward with their own accounts of how the drug dealers had targeted them and how the investigation had stopped them from getting hurt. Soon, everyone in town knew that Erica Collins, the friendly barista from Riverbend Cafe, had been a Chicago detective who had taken down drug cartels. People's reactions varied. Some were surprised and impressed. Some felt a little betrayed that she had hidden her past for so long. Most were simply grateful. Tom Morrison came into the cafe the morning after the full story came out in the Redfield Gazette. He sat at his usual corner table, and Erica brought him his usual black coffee with 2 sugars. "You saved my son's life," he said, looking up at her with emotion in his eyes. "When Casey took those pills, you were there. When you figured out what was happening, you stopped it before more kids got hurt. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. I just did what needed to be done." "But you didn't have to. You could have called the police and let them handle it. You could have stayed out of it. But you didn't. You put yourself at risk for this town, for our kids." He paused. Why didn't you ever tell anyone about your past? Erica sat down across from him. Because I wanted to leave it behind. 25 years of police work, especially narcotics work, takes a toll. I saw terrible things. I had terrible things happen to me. When I came here, I wanted a fresh start, a simple life. I wanted to be just Erica, the barista, not Detective Collins, the cop. But you couldn't completely leave it behind. No. Some things stay with you forever. The skills, the instincts, the sense of responsibility. When I saw what was happening here, I tried to ignore it at first. I tried to tell myself it wasn't my problem anymore. But I couldn't. Not when kids were getting hurt. Tom nodded slowly. Well, I'm glad you're the person you are. And for what it's worth, you're still just Erica to me. Just Erica, who happens to be the most capable person I've ever met. Variations of that conversation happened throughout the following weeks. Customers would come in and want to talk about what had happened. Some had questions. Some had stories of their own. Some just wanted to say thank you. Jenny, her young coworker at the cafe, was particularly curious. Miss Collins, how did you learn to do all that? The surveillance and the investigation and everything? Training and experience. 25 years of it. Was it scary? Being undercover with drug dealers? Terrifying. Every single time. But you did it anyway. Yes, because people needed help, and I had the ability to help them. Jenny thought about that. That's pretty cool. I mean, I want to open a restaurant, which is not as exciting as being a detective, but I like the idea of having skills that can help people. Running a restaurant is helping people. You're feeding them, giving them a place to gather and connect. That matters. Different ways of helping are all valuable. Sarah Chen brought Hannah into the cafe a week after the arrests. Hannah looked healthier. The dark circles under her eyes were fading, and she had gained some weight back. She was seeing a counselor twice a week and attending a support group for teenagers dealing with addiction. We wanted to thank you, Sarah said, for everything, for listening to Hannah when she came to you, for finding her, for risking yourself to get her out of that cabin. I'm just glad she's safe. Hannah gave Erica a hug. You saved my life, Miss Collins. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there. You saved yourself by having the courage to ask for help. That's the hardest part. Maybe, but having someone who actually knew what to do when I asked, that made all the difference. The legal proceedings moved forward steadily. All 6 arrested members of the Riverside Syndicate took plea deals rather than going to trial. Victor Reeves received a 20-year federal prison sentence. The others received sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years, depending on their roles in the organization. The DEA used the evidence gathered in Redfield to track down and arrest syndicate members in 4 other states. The entire organization was dismantled within 3 months. Agent Martinez called Erica personally to thank her and to update her on the progress. Because of what you did in Redfield, we were able to save dozens of other communities from being targeted. You may have single-handedly destroyed one of the most effective drug trafficking operations in the region. I'm glad I could help. There's something else. We found evidence that the Riverside Syndicate had been planning to expand their operations significantly. They were going to target 20 more small towns next year. Because of you, that's never going to happen. After that call, Erica sat quietly for a long time, absorbing the magnitude of what had been accomplished. She had not just saved Redfield, she had saved countless other communities. Countless other teenagers who would never know how close they had come to being victimized. One afternoon, about a month after the arrests, Sheriff Hendricks came into the cafe. "Miss Collins, can I talk to you for a minute?" They sat at a quiet table, and he pulled out an envelope. "This came from the DEA. It's a commendation for your work on the investigation. They wanted to give it to you formally, but I told them you'd probably prefer something low-key." Erica opened the envelope and found a certificate praising her exceptional contributions to law enforcement and the protection of communities endangered by drug trafficking. It was signed by the regional DEA director. "That's very kind," she said, "but unnecessary." "Maybe, but I think you should have it. You should remember what you did here." "I'm not likely to forget." "No, I suppose not." He paused. "Can I ask you something? Do you miss it, being a detective?" Erica thought carefully before answering. "Sometimes. I miss the sense of purpose, the feeling that you're making a real difference. I miss the intellectual challenge of putting pieces together and solving complex problems. I miss working with a team of people who are all dedicated to the same goals. But I don't miss the darkness. I don't miss seeing the worst of what people can do to each other. I don't miss the danger and the stress. And I don't miss losing myself in the work so completely that there's nothing else in my life." "So you're happy here, making coffee?" She smiled. "I'm happy here, yes. It's a good life, a peaceful life. And after 25 years of chaos, I appreciate peace." "Well, Redfield is lucky to have you, whether you're making coffee or catching drug dealers." As the autumn turned to winter, life in Redfield gradually returned to normal. The news crews left. The trial proceedings became routine legal matters that most people stopped following closely. The teenagers who had been caught up in the drug crisis worked through their recovery with varying degrees of success. Erica continued working at Riverbend Cafe, serving coffee and talking to customers. But something had changed, and everyone could feel it. People looked at her differently now. There was respect, certainly, but also a kind of comfort. The knowledge that their friendly barista was also someone capable and protective. Someone who would step up if the town ever needed her again. One December morning, the first snow of the season was falling as Erica opened the cafe. She stood for a moment, watching the flakes drift down onto Main Street, transforming the town into something magical and peaceful. Tom Morrison arrived at his usual time. "Morning, Erica. The usual?" "Morning, Tom. Coming right up." As she poured his coffee, black with 2 sugars, the way he had taken it for 15 years, she felt a deep sense of contentment. This was her life. This was her place. She had proven to herself and to everyone else that she could still be Detective Erica Collins when she needed to be. But she had also proven that she could be just Erica, the barista who knew everyone's names and how they took their coffee. She was 66 years old. She had saved her town. She had stopped bad people from hurting innocent kids. She had found the balance between her past and her present. And that was enough. As Tom settled into his corner table with his newspaper, as the cafe filled with the familiar faces of the morning rush, as the coffee machine hissed and steamed and the conversation flowed around her, Erica Collins smiled. She had found her way home, in every sense that mattered. The darkness of her past no longer haunted her. The skills she had thought she would never use again had served a vital purpose. And the quiet life she had built in this small mountain town had proven to be not a retreat or an escape, but a different kind of calling. Sometimes the most important work happens not in big cities with their dramatic crimes and high-stakes investigations, but in small towns where people know each other, where relationships matter, where one person paying attention and caring enough to act can make all the difference. Detective Erica Collins had learned that lesson, and Barista Erica Collins lived it every day. The sun broke through the clouds, sending shafts of light through the cafe windows. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly on Redfield, covering everything in quiet beauty. Inside, Erica made coffee and greeted customers and smiled at the peaceful certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She had come to this town broken and haunted, seeking only peace and anonymity. She had found healing, purpose, and a new kind of heroism, one that did not require a badge or a gun, but simply the courage to care and the willingness to act. At 66, Erica Collins had discovered something that had eluded her for most of her career: the understanding that you did not need to sacrifice everything to make a difference. You did not need to lose yourself to help others. You could be both the detective who solved the case and the barista who remembered how people took their coffee. You could have both the extraordinary skills and the ordinary life. You could be a hero without wearing a cape. Sometimes, the hero was just the person who showed up, paid attention, and refused to look away when something was wrong. That was who Erica Collins was. That was who she had always been, underneath the titles and the trauma. And as she looked around her cafe at the people she had served and protected, the town she had saved and called home, she knew that her second life, the life she had thought would be a diminished version of her first, was actually the culmination of everything she had learned and everything she had endured. She had come full circle, and she was, finally, at peace. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear what inspired you the most. And where in the world are you watching from? Let us know below.